Do you feel that we're going to be pushed into a KYC world for blockchain and DeFi with these wallets, to where what we're thinking of today as this anonymous level, and that's where everyone's really happy, is going to be pushed down into a very small subset, and the KYC, because that's, let's be clear, that's where the governments and everyone else wants to see this for adoption, and that's where institutions, are kind of waiting for. But what's your thoughts on that?
Jay, I think it's a very good question. And I think also that model of like what happened with, torrents in Pirate Bay, and then like um, Apple and Spotify and all that made streaming exist, right? That model I also think is very apt here too. And I don't think enough crypto people think about this possibility or assign a high enough probability to that happening. They're like very idealistic. And I'll take an optimistic approach here, where I think either way isn't a bad outcome. Actually, there's some downsides to this too, but the problem with like the Apple and Spotify, the model you have about like everyone KYCs and big companies adopt this. What you're really also saying is large centralized players are become the linchpins of this like DeFi or crypto thing. And I think that there is a much higher risk of that happening, or probability. I won't even frame it negatively. There's a much higher probability of that happening than I think a lot of crypto people realize, where just all of the regulatory, governmental, and just frictions make it so that there are a handful of large entities that kind of are your gateways to this supposedly like decentralized system. And what I'll say that's positive about this is that even in that path, which seems very anti-crypto and seems like it disregards many of the principles behind the whole idea here, even in that path, I would say that on the margin, the consumer is better off, that they'll have like more services, more choice, more products, like a better feature set, in the same way that like streaming music through Apple or streaming movies through Netflix is a better product offering than like having to buy DVDs and deal with the RIAA or whatever it is before that. Right.
Yeah, we won't even go down that path. Alan, what's your thoughts on that?
Exactly.
Same topic.
Geez, man, it's complicated, and I think, but I totally agree with Hart in that there's a bit of conflict between, I think, like traditional crypto values about decentralization and pseudonymity, and I think that probably a lot of the folks who control a lot of the way that this is going to develop need to take a very principled approach or be prepared to lose, and it'll start looking very much like a traditional system. But the way this shakes out, I think, is still it's so dynamic. Like to first of all, I think you've got different groups of traditional financial institutions that will come on at different times and in different ways. So your like small community bank is probably more willing to play that role of sitting between DeFi and TradFi and just kind of using Aave Arc to ARB. Whereas I think, and that's a sort of different indicator, I would say, as to like institutional adoption compared to like JP Morgan launches a fork of Aave with like the JP Morgan brand all over it or whatever it is.
Terrifying.
Then I think there's a different kind of attitude and a different kind of like set of principles that need to be defended across both of those different scenarios. But to just lump like institutional adoption into one lump, I think is probably not quite nuanced enough. And the way this develops with the regulatory, both from a regulatory point of view, but also how those bridges get built and what principles are embedded in them, I think is kind of really the most interesting part. And I guess that's somewhere where infrastructure will be really important. And one of those pieces of infrastructure, I think, is likely to be UMA. I mean, it's a very sophisticated building block and mechanism, oracle, that a lot of these potential bridges and capabilities can be used. So I don't know. Maybe we should talk a little bit about Luma.